What is the human design chart? What is so different from what we used to know?
The human design chart is a synthesis of a few different sciences: astrology and astronomy, the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah tree of life, the chakra model and how that works.
Yeah.
All of these things comprise the human design chart. There's this whole study that's been done with the Generation X and the people who grew up during the Great Depression. Great Depression was scary for a lot of people. Banks ran out of money. People were trying to figure out how to make ends meet.
Belief is all we need to be able to tap into this cosmic power.
I believe belief, and then also taking.
Welcome to the King Obed podcast, the podcast that is set for your personal growth, development, inspiration, and motivation. In today's episode, how well do you understand your human nature? How well are you crafting yourself to see the purpose for which you are brought on this earth? With me is a guest who has been helping people to discover themselves and also to design the human nature as well, understanding gene keys and all that you need to understand with the human nature. She is Diamond Drip, and she is energy alignment coach, doing so well in the space of helping people discover themselves. So welcome to the King Obed podcast, Diamond.
Thank you, Obed. I am appreciative for that beautiful introduction. It aligns so clearly with what you talk about, these untapped abilities that we have. So I love the energetic alignment that we have.
Great. So for how long have you been doing this, for you trying to align people with the energies and styles? How long have you been doing this?
Yeah, so I've been on this entrepreneurial path for the past 4 years, almost 5 now. So celebrating that, because that's a milestone, as we know, in business. I didn't always have these tools. These tools came to me more recently. Last year was when I really started using these in my business. Before, I was helping people step into who they were confidently, just strictly with business and mindset coaching. But it was when I found the tools of human design and gene keys that everything really clicked. I was like, instead of really trying to pull information out of people, because we know sometimes our clients can be kind of closed off. They might not want to share things out of shame or guilt or what have you. But when I found these tools, it was like having a blueprint for every single client that I was working with. So even things that they may not have been able to see themselves and bring to the light, I was able to look at their blueprint and be like, is this what's going on? And they'd be like, yes. Oh my gosh, how did you know? So the human design and gene keys part is a fairly recent part, but I've been on this path for the past 4 years.
Wow. And you've been helping people to discover themselves. Okay, so you are one of those who believe that there is no limit. People are only limited by the fact that they fear and they doubt themselves. That is why people think they are limited. Why do you think contrary to this?
Yeah, so when we really think about it, at the end of the day, it's a little voice inside of us that tells us whether we can or we can't do something. There are so many religious texts that talk about us having divine God power, that talk about us being these cosmic beings of creative power. And it's hard for us to believe as human beings in this 3D space what we can't see or feel or hear or taste or touch with our 5 senses. So when we think about these really big goals, these really big dreams that we have, but we only see what the limits of the people around us are able to accomplish, it becomes this kind of voice of comparison. And so if someone is further along than you are, then that inner critic says, well, you don't look like them, you don't have as many things as them, you don't do all of these things the way that they do it, so you can't do it. Or it kind of puts this fear or this kind of lack mentality inside of you, and it makes you question whether or not you have the ability to achieve it. And so it's when we start to believe that little voice that's telling us to fear whatever the goal is. It's when we believe the things that maybe our parents have told us, right?
Yeah.
There's this whole study that's been done with the Generation X and then the people who grew up during the Great Depression. The
Hmm.
Great Depression was scary for a lot of people. Like banks
Yeah.
ran out of money, people were trying to figure out how to make ends meet. And so that generation raised children in the belief that in order to make sure that you have safety, in order to make sure that you have security, you have to get a good job with
Yeah.
benefits and a salary and all of the things. And so they raised children to believe that that's what they had to do. And if they did anything other than that, it was risky or they might fail. And
Yeah.
so you have this whole generation that's being raised to think, well, if I don't do it the status quo way, if I don't do it the way that my parents did it, then it's going to be wrong. It's going to not turn out the way that I think. And so it's when we hold on to those beliefs that we hold ourselves back from whatever our true purpose here is in this lifetime.
Wow. So you think that belief is all we need to be able to tap into this cosmic power?
I believe belief and then also taking actionable steps towards that belief, like creating a plan. It's one thing to say, like, I believe that
You
this will
believe,
happen, or
yeah.
I want this to happen, but
Hmm.
actually making a plan and sticking to the plan. Uh,
Yeah.
there's there's one syndrome that I talk about. It's called new shiny object syndrome, which is where we're on the path, we're following the plan that we made for ourselves, and then something like the shiny object will come in and it'll be like, okay, if you do this instead, then this will get you to success quicker. And
Yeah.
then we step off the path that we were going down to chase this quick fix, only to find out that the quick fix doesn't work for us, and then we veered off. So it's having the belief and knowing and trusting that the plan that you made for yourself is the plan that's going to get you there. Of course, you can shift and alter and change as needed as life happens, but really sticking to the plan that you made and making sure that whatever you're pursuing, it's rooted in a place of stillness or joy, not in a place of shoulds or have tos or beliefs that you didn't choose for yourself, beliefs that were passed down from you. So it's kind of twofold. It's the belief first and then the confidence to execute and follow the plan that you set for yourself.
So you have the belief, and then with the belief, you develop the confidence to be able to execute whatever you want to do for yourself as an individual. So
Exactly.
now there are people who also believe in the human design thing and the gene thing, which you keep on championing. What is the human design chart? What is so different from what we used to know? And why should an individual adapt to this new way of identifying your beyond your personality to be able to know actually what's in you?
Absolutely. So the human design chart is a synthesis of a few different sciences. Many of them we know and we have practiced by themselves. So
Hmm.
astrology and astronomy goes into it, the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah tree of life. Many of us know about the chakra model and how that works.
Yeah.
All of these things go into and comprise the human design chart. And so whereas those things provide you with generalizations, not everything always fits. Like, take horoscopes, for example, since I said astrology is a part of that.
Hmm.
You can read your horoscope and it says, oh, I'm a Cancer. And so Cancers do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But not everything in that description will
It's
necessarily
true.
fit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll feel like you're putting on a shoe that's a little too small, a little too tight, but you're like, this is my size, so I guess it fits. Human design is the science of differentiation. And so, whereas things that are more general, like astrology,
Hmm.
like the chakra model by themselves, they may not always fit. Human design just tells you what your natural human tendencies are. Many people, when they discover, like when I work with them and we talk about different things, different gates, different activations and strengths, they're
Yeah.
like, oh, I knew that. But what happens is we don't have the language to confirm or validate that these are actually gifts. that these are actually things that we're stepping into this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is that comparison piece.
Yeah.
We compare ourselves to other people who may have different gifts than us, and then we make ourselves wrong for not being like somebody else versus just trusting in what's innately in us. And so human design is a very unique way. There's not been a time that I have pulled someone's chart and it was exactly the same as somebody else's. There may have
Okay.
been similarities, there may have been, nuances, but everyone experiences their own design in a completely different way.
Okay. So this design was specifically developed by somebody in order for humans to use it to be able to, identify their innate gifts, their potentials, their true personality, what they are truly made of as
Yeah,
individuals.
exactly.
What are the components of the human design chart? What do I need to be able to activate some of these components of my being as a person?
Yeah. So the most important pieces are understanding what your energy type is. So
Mm-hmm.
there are 5 energy types.
Okay.
Majority of the population is going to fall into the generator energy type. So we're like the energizer bunnies. We can just
Yeah.
go and go and go as long as we're doing work that we love. Then you have projectors. These are kind of our natural guides. They
Yeah.
make up something like 20% of the population. You
Okay.
have manifestors. These are our idea people. So they're people who catalyze these sparks of change in others and also bring into form whatever ideas or inspirations that they might have. They
Mm-hmm.
just might not have the generator battery to keep going and keep fighting, which is why
Yeah.
they always best with a team. And then you have our unicorns, who are reflectors. They make up less than 1% of the population. And you can kind of think of them as like our mood rings. They take in the energy that's around them from
Mm-hmm.
their environment, from the people, and they
Yeah.
amplify it back out. So
Okay.
it's
So more or
really,
less like they reflect the energy that they receive back
yeah,
to the people, back to the society.
yes, exactly. And so
Okay.
they're really good um, evaluators of how we're moving along as a collective, as a society. Like, are we reflecting back as a collective what we would want to see in future generations, or are
Hmm.
there things that we need to fix, that we
Hmm.
need to shift, that we need to change? So the energy type is probably one of the biggest areas, simply because each energy type has a specific strategy for
Yeah.
how they're designed to move. So some people, it's waiting for the invitation. Other people, it's waiting a lunar cycle. Our unicorns, the reflectors, it's actually really aligned for them to take a lot of time to make really big decisions, to
Okay.
really assess the truth of a situation, to assess and come to clarity. So your energy type is important because every type has a specific strategy. And then I would say the second most important is your authority. There are 7 different authorities. I have emotional authority, which like half the population has emotional authority, which
Yes.
basically which basically means that at a minimum, we should sleep on things. Because what happens when it comes time to make really big decisions, we'll know how we'll feel in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
but we need to make sure that if it's a yes, it's still a yes tomorrow when we may not be in that good mood. It's still a
Okay.
yes, a week from now. The more time you can give yourself with emotional authority, the better, because then you can really ride your emotional wave. So
Okay.
that's one of the authorities. Another one is splenic. So many of us, we have intuitive gut feelings. We have these responses that our body is like, yes, do that. I'm not really sure why, but yes, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And so
Yes. Yes.
and so when you know that you have splenic authority and that it's aligned for you to listen to that instinct, to listen to your intuition, and it may not be logical all the time because we live in a culture that prizes and praises the logical mind. It has to have reason. You have to
Yeah.
have facts. You have to
Mm-hmm.
have this and that. It can be really empowering to know that I have the wisdom inside me. My body tells me whether or not something is aligned for me or not, is
Yeah.
something that I can leap into.
Yeah.
So Type, strategy, and authority are the most important pieces for someone to start experimenting with. And then you can get into the nuances of like the profile lines. These are kind of like archetypes of how other people see you versus how you interact with the world yourself.
So if I come to you that I want to activate my human design,
Mhm.
what are some of the things that you will require for me to in order to be able to activate that? After everything, this is actually who I am. For instance, maybe if I'm a reflector, if I'm a manifester, if I'm a projector, what do I need?
Yeah. So the very first step that I always encourage people to do is to look at their human design chart. On my website, there is a free tool that people can use where you only need three things. You just
Yeah.
need your birth date, your time of birth, and your
Mhm.
place of birth. And it's with those three things that you can pull this massive wealth of information. I call it your energetic blueprint. Human design calls it a body graph chart, but it's this manual, if you will. Now, I will say you have to scroll down in order to get the scoop on how these things are showing up for you in your life, because when you first pull it, it's just the chart with a bunch of shapes and arrows and
Yeah.
numbers with decimals and different like lines and things, and you're like, what am I looking at? But if you scroll down a little bit more, there's actually little blurbs that tell you about your energy type and tell you how you can start making your best, most aligned decisions. And you got to love technology, because when someone pulls their chart, I actually send them a cheat sheet. So they have what they're looking at when they first
Mm-hmm.
pull it, but then they also receive an email with a cheat sheet that I created, which helps them decode it a little bit more and really start to understand what their profile is, what their energy type is, what their strategy is, and how they can start using that in their everyday life.
Wow. So all of these, knowing all of these come into play into the person you are, even the kind of profession you should do, those kind of things. And it comes to all those kind of points. And at the end of the day, you should be able to know all these to formulate or become part of you as a person.
Yeah. And so to your point, so Gene Keys actually takes a look at more of um, your profession. So it
Oh,
takes a
okay.
look at your gene keys. So human design is kind of like a user's manual, if
Yeah.
you will, for this
Hmm.
this body. And then gene keys, it really takes a closer look at what you're here to do in this lifetime, what you're here to learn, what deeply fulfills you, and what your purpose is. And
Yeah.
so when we start talking about purpose, that's when profession comes in. When you first start to dive into your gene keys, it'll tell you actually where you thrive best. For me, I thrive best in a position of leadership or influence. My
Hmm.
dad thrives best in a place where his wisdom and knowledge is highly respected. For other people, it's entrepreneurs. My aunt, she thrives best as part of a small team. My daughter
Okay.
and my partner, which works out really well for them because here I am thriving best in a position of leadership or influence.
Yeah.
They thrive best in a partnership. So while I'm
Oh,
out here doing my own thing, they have each other to be in this partnership with, which is really nice sometimes.
wow. 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 So you were talking in terms of the human design, and either one person is a reflector, a projector, a manifester, and those kind of things. And it even has a role to play in the kind of profession, whether we will be leaders, whether we assume a certain kind of position in society and things. So it means that it's really important for someone to know this kind of human design. But will people also not say who is giving this chat? Who is revealing some of these things? Are these things real? Are these things natural? Because they believe they know themselves. There's no need for them to go to any human design chart to reveal their true identity. What do you also say to that?
Yeah, I've come across a few of those people,
Yes.
and so this is where my design comes in,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
instead of being in this energy of trying to convince them that they need these tools, At the end of the day, they're tools. And so
Yeah.
some people have things that work for them, and it's just strictly faith based, it's just belief based. For me, especially with my profile, I am a practical solutions person. So I like things that have been tried and tested. And
Yeah.
so what I would say is, Ra Uruhu, who's the founder of human design, he is no longer with us here on this earthly plane, but he had this initial download in the 80s. Since then, there have been other thought leaders, one of which is a scientist. She has a PhD, and it's in quantum physics, which is one of the sciences that goes into human design. She actually created this system called quantum human design, which looks
Yeah.
more at like the frequency levels. And so, what I can say is, while there are lots of things that work for lots of people, one of the things that I know to be true is everyone who has given me the privilege of being able to look at their energy, to be able to
Uh-huh.
look at their gene keys, they all say the same thing. It feels like I'm coming home to myself. It
Yeah.
feels like I have what I need in the moments where I am stuck in frustration, where I am overwhelmed, because we're, especially in this day and age, we're overwhelmed with choice and information and
Yes.
all
Yes.
of these things. And so it can be really helpful and empowering, even to know how you make your best, most aligned decisions that don't lead in frustration or anger and bitterness or disappointment. It can be really helpful to have these tools as something to lean on that have been tried and true and tested for at least 40 years.
Okay. So it means that definitely people will have, concerns against this because there are people who in quote might not believe this because they know that I know my true self. Why would a chat tell me who I am? They don't
Yeah,
believe in those things. Yeah.
there are those people, and for those people, I wish them well. I personally am not for everyone, and human
Yeah.
design isn't for everyone. But the people who choose to at least take a peek, at least give it a try, they
Uh-huh.
find that there's something that shifts and changes in them once they
Yeah.
know themselves on this deeper level.
Okay. Okay. You also talk about gene keys.
Mhm.
So if I know my DNA as a person, how does
Mhm.
it influence me, or how does it influence my me activating my potentials, unlocking the true potential within me? How does that correlation come into play?
Yeah, so gene keys, it takes a closer look at two of the sciences that I mentioned in human design. So it takes a
Yeah.
look at the quantum physics side. So everything is frequency, everything is vibrational. So there are lower frequencies that we live in. Um, some people call this like shadow work. And then there are higher frequencies, there are gifts that we can step into. And in Gene Keys, there's this Sanskrit word, which is called a siddhi, which is like the highest frequency when things are aligning on all cylinders. And so when you're able to actually know and have a language for some of these things that are showing up in your DNA that have been passed down genetically over
Yeah.
time, you're able to be empowered with the knowledge of exactly where to pinpoint and contemplate and see how you can transform out of these lower frequencies that are keeping us stuck, that are causing dis-ease in our body, that are making us be even more fearful, that are making us have anxiety and depression and all of these things. We can actually
Okay.
pinpoint these shadows, and we can start the work of understanding where and why we lived in those lower frequencies, and how we can step into our greatest potential, how we can step into our purpose here in this life.
Okay. Okay. So you believe that we are all destined for greatness. We all have something in us which we need to unearth as individuals.
Absolutely. We may not always think that we do, but there's something in there. We were all put here for a reason, for a purpose. We may not always know what it is, but we were put here for it. Our gifts that we chose in this
Yeah.
lifetime, They were chosen for a reason.
Okay. So in your current book that you've released or you just launched,
Yeah.
the Destiny Expose, you wrote
Yes.
a chapter on learning to lead from
Oh,
within. That as I sit here as a person, how would I be able to know that there is something within me that I can activate in order to lead or to do something for myself and for the world at large?
yeah. So in that chapter, I talk a good bit about imposter syndrome, which
Hmm.
many of us know it as that inner critic, as that little voice that's comparing us to somebody who might be farther along than we are,
Yeah.
who might have more shiny things than we are, and we and we get stuck in that comparison. And so it's when we learn to be empowered by our gifts, when we learn to understand the areas where, okay, this is why I listen to my mom about these certain things, but what do
Yeah.
I actually believe? This is why, society said X, Y, or Z. Especially, I talk about being a Black woman entrepreneur and a mom. And so there are different things that society places on each of those labels: being a Black
Yeah.
woman, being a
Yeah.
Black mom, being
Yeah.
a woman in business, and then being a Black woman in business. And so society has all of these different stigmas and stereotypes that come with it, but actually being able to exit out the noise from
Yeah.
the outside world and actually say, what do I believe about me? What do I see in my potential? What purpose did I come into this lifetime to fulfill? And actually being empowered by that can actually help you learn to lead from within. Because when you know how to trust that internal voice inside of you, the external noise, it doesn't go away, right? We always have our family, our friends, and society. It doesn't go away, but it becomes easier to listen to us instead of the outside noise.
Wow. But you see, in like a world where we are all faced with challenges, with frustrations and a lot of things, what to you and per the experiences for the number of years that you've been training people, you've been coaching people, what are some of the common mental and then let's say the emotional barriers that people face when trying to activate this lead from within?
Yeah. So the main one is really around their voice. So many of us, we have this center in human design. It's called the ego heart center. And so many of us have it either undefined or completely open, which means that we don't have consistent access to our self esteem, to our self worth, to our sense of self here in this plane. And so what happens is we begin to identify with things outside of us as markers of success. And so one of the common things that I've found is that people are trying to achieve goals that were set by the outside noise and not actually things that they even want, right? So there
Yeah.
are people who are trying to, I'm in the States, there are people who are trying to go and fulfill and live this American dream where you go to school, you get good grades, you get into a good university so you can get a good job and get married, have kids, buy the house, like the whole thing. And there are so many people, especially with the age group that I work with, because
Yeah.
I work with millennials and Gen Xers. And so a lot of Gen Xers right now have children that have left the house, are leaving the house, and they are living their own adult lives. And so
Yeah.
these empty nesters, as they're called, they are like, okay, I did all the things I was supposed to do. And now all of the things that I thought I was supposed to do that were supposed to bring me happiness, I'm still feeling a little unfulfilled. I'm still feeling like I have more in me that needs to come out. I have
Hmm?
no idea what that is because I've been listening to society, what society said I should do this whole time. And so it can be really helpful to know who you are or to begin the journey of learning who you are at this critical moment so that you can step into that next chapter, step into that next phase.
So, how long will it take me for me to know who I am?
So so most of us already know who we are. We have some general idea. What human design and gene keys do as tools is they help give you the confidence to really stand in who you are. For example, for me, one of my gifts is gift 53, which is the gate of beginnings. In some language, it's called the launch pad. So for me, it's one thing to know that I love helping people shift their perspective, to
Okay.
actually challenge their beliefs and actually choose what they believe instead of what they're being told to believe. It's one thing to always have kind of seen that in my lifetime. It's another thing to know that that's actually a part of what I'm here to do in this lifetime. I'm here to wake people up. And so, whereas before I might have questioned, like, should I be in this work? Should I be doing this? Am I on the right path? I can stand firmly and know, like, no, this is actually aligned for you. This is actually how you welcome in abundance, joy, fulfillment, success. Just keep doing this, keep using your gifts. And so we already know who we are most of the time. We just don't have
Okay.
the language all the time to confirm and validate it, which is why a lot of us we're seeking that external validation. We're saying, and the school system does not do us any favors with this because, right, we write this paper, we do the assignment, and we take it to our teachers and we're like, it's good enough. Yeah, it's an A,
Yeah.
it's a B, it's it's okay. And we have to unlearn that so that we can start saying, no, this is an A, this is extraordinary, this is what I'm here to do.
So I'm sure people have died without them even not knowing themselves as well. How can we, or what should we do to close our ears to more or less the noise from the society? Because you've made us understand that the noise from the society can affect how we want to, how the actual personality of ourselves. How do we close our ears to some of these noises from the society?
Yeah. So the number one way that we start to close our ears to the noise of society is actually looking. So many of us, we don't want to look within, um,
Yeah.
which is why there are so many up and coming speakers and talks around mindfulness and around self awareness, because we know it's important. We know that it's important to meditate. We know it's important to journal. We know that it's important to do yoga and spend time with our bodies. It's not
Yeah.
always about the flexible positions, it's actually spending time with your body and pushing yourself to different limits in yoga.
Mhm.
And so we know that these things are important, but we don't do them. And so, really, the first step is choosing to make time for you, because there are a lot of times where we choose to either numb or to avoid whatever it is that we know we should be doing. We reach for the glass of wine, we reach for
Yeah.
something to smoke with, we reach for Netflix in a lot of cases because it's easier to get caught up in someone else's drama.
Yes, 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 yes. It's some. I think it's something that is worrying the generation of today because, like you said, we are fixed on the external stance, but within, somebody might ask, what do I have to know from within? Because everything is just happening around me, and that is what I should focus on as a person. Why do I have to go with inside me to know what is inside me?
That it's like there's so much wisdom inside of us. Our
Mhm.
bodies, right? There's this book, it's called Our Bodies Keep Score, and it talks about how, like, suppressed emotions and how things that we push down, trauma that we push down, that we act like didn't happen, it actually gets stored in our bodies and it shows up in either physical pain or emotional pain. So different disorders, anxiety, PTSD, depression, all of these different things. And so it can be like crazy to think that people are saying, like, why do I have to look within in order to fix these things? I should be able to
Yeah.
just And part of that is conditioning. Part of that is societal and cultural conditioning, because they're like, why should I go within if I can just go out and buy this thing? I can
Mhm,
get a
mhm.
prescription for whatever this is. But
Yeah, yeah.
oftentimes the things that we go outside and get, they're a temporary fix to, they don't actually address the root cause. The root cause is addressed by looking within. You may put a band-aid on something for a little bit, but what we find, especially as humans, is that we find that we fix a problem by putting a band-aid on it, and then it comes back in a different way, or
Yeah.
a different bigger problem pops up, and that's because we're not fixing the root cause of the issue.
So there are people who believe that just get money, everything will be sorted out. It doesn't matter whether you know yourself, you don't know yourself, whether you know the human design nature, you know the gene keys of yourself, all those kind of things. And I'm sure these are some of the challenges you face in trying to shape the mindset of people. So what are some of the challenges that when you started this journey of trying to align people with their energies and things, what are some of the challenges you've encountered and how have you dealt with them up to this point?
Yeah, so especially because my target audience are entrepreneurs, they are people of business mind. One of the biggest challenges has been getting them to understand that it's not another marketing strategy that they need. It's not another 10 quick steps to whatever it is. And then because there are so many people who do believe, like, if I just get money, like everything would be fine if I just
Yeah, it'll be
got
sorted out. Yeah, yeah.
right. And what one of the things that we fail to see a lot of the times when we think that way is almost everyone who is really wealthy off, they make time for themselves because they did all the things that they thought they had to do to get the money. And now that they have the money, they're still not fulfilled. They're still not happy. So they go out to retreats, they go out to different things, they do different things for themselves, massages, etc., because they're trying to fill that gap when really if they were aligned as they were fulfilling their purpose, as they were welcoming in this material abundance, they wouldn't have to work so hard now that they have it to actually fill that hole.
So whilst we are so fixed on the external, we should be also focused on the internal to be able to draw the power within and also to align ourselves with the cosmic powers, which will give us that kind of personality we need to be able to thrive in the world where we find ourselves.
Exactly. It always starts from within. We hear it all the time, right? It starts with you. It starts within.
Yeah, we hear it, but people cannot activate it. So people think like it's like an illusion, it's something which is not real. It's like somebody has propounded like kind of a theory, and then it's working for a group of people and it's not working for the others. So let them enjoy their world. Let us also enjoy our world. So there's that kind of perception there.
Yeah. And it's sad, but the few people who choose to dive deeper into themselves, they find that things are a lot easier. They face less resistance when they start from within and then try to bring what's within on the outside versus listening to the outside on what should be on the inside.
So you've been receiving testimonies from your clients, and what are some of the like the common testimonies that you hear from people saying, "Oh, I'm Coach Diamond. I was able to do this. If I had not met you, it would have been difficult for me to overcome this A, B, C, those kind of things." Can you share a bit of it with us?
Yeah, so I have one client who I worked with her personally, but she does bring her relationship into our conversation sometimes because
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of things that you can gain from looking at someone else's chart. And one of the things that she told me was that she understands her partner so much more. And so yes, like understanding her design helps her in her business. It helps her give herself more patience. But in her relationship, it actually helps their communication because they're two different energy types. So she's able to understand some of the nuances of his energy And so when before she would take things personally because he was just operating in his design, she's able
Yeah.
to extend empathy. She's able to extend understanding in those situations. Another client of mine, she was one of those people who was trying to build her business while also still working a full-time job. And circumstances, divine timing, whatever you want to call it, played out how it did. And she was forced to make the leap into her business that she was scared to take. And
Yeah.
around that same time, we made the pivot to start talking more about her gifts. And one of the things that she always says to me is, I love that we started with the business like basics, like getting her website together, figuring out her niche and things like that, her messaging. But one of the things that she loves the most is that every time we peel back a layer of her design, whether it's, a part of her purpose, whether it's what she's here to do. We just recently talked about her north and south nodes. So the gifts that she brought with her into this lifetime and what she's moving towards in this next phase of life. Every time we peel back a layer, she says, this is exactly what I needed for what I have coming up. Because she's able to listen and learn from the things that we're talking about, from the gifts that we're talking about, from the reflection questions that we're diving into. And she's able to actually take it and apply it in real time to what she's doing in her business.
Wow. So you are getting real time, kind of experiences and testimonies from people who you are coaching. How does that make you feel? Like as a coach and as someone who is trying to shape the mindset of people and how people think or what people think about themselves. How does it make you feel?
It makes me feel phenomenal because it shows me, especially with that one client that I was just talking about, it shows me that I made the right decision to pivot in my business.
Yeah.
I really branded myself as this business coach who can teach you AI tech tools and all of the, speaking nuances.
Yeah.
And I was actually scared to make the pivot to start talking more about human design and gene keys and this spiritual tools that I use because I wasn't sure how it was going to be received. And so when I have clients who tell me, like, I'm so glad that you are doing this work. This work needs to be everywhere. I'm like, oh my gosh, I felt that way too. So it's so nice that you also feel that way. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes.
So it feels great.
Interesting. So what are the processes that you one will go through? Maybe like 2 months, 3 months. What's the duration for me to be coached by you in order to activate this human design, gene keys, and then all those kind of things? What's the duration?
Yeah. So the main coaching platform that I have is a 6-month program, and it's through 12 biweekly sessions that we meet, that you have access to the resources in the library and the back office, that we're able to really unpack your design and help you step
Yeah.
into that. If you don't have 6 months, I do have one package that I offer people. It's 4 90-minute sessions where we're able to get into the meat and potatoes of a lot of the things that I think people should know at a minimum. So, energy type, strategy, and authority, their purpose, what they're here to do. We have genetic wounds. So, I think that it's really important to know what those are and to understand the emotional reaction to the manifestation of the wound. And then we have sexual wounds as well. So I think that it's really important for people to know all of their wound patterns so that when they start showing up in their lives and they get triggered, they can have the tools to actually help combat and contemplate those things and shift out of that shadow, lower energy.
Interesting. So collectively, you believe that if we've been able to go through the human design, the gene keys, all those kind of things, we'll be able to know our true self. We'll be able to activate the innate gifts that we've been given, and then also our true potential to make strategic decisions in this life.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said at the beginning, it's like a user's manual for this vessel here in this lifetime. So many of us hear that we're a mind, we're a body, and we're a spirit. And so human design just helps you navigate this vessel here in this incarnation and help you welcome in success with less resistance.
Wow, wow, wow. This has been so, revealing to myself. And I know that people who might be doubting some of these things, because there are a lot of people who doubt some of these things. They think it's not real. They think it's maybe somebody elsewhere who has crafted something just to take money from people and stuff. So it doesn't really work. But I know that, yes, the Creator, God, has given each and every one something special as a person. And even for myself, I came out with this book called Unlocking Your Untapped Abilities. Yes, because I believe that, yes, we all have been given something, but how to activate it and how to. So, you coming from that point of using the human design and then the gene keys, which people, I don't think so many people are privy to some of these things. So, I think you are doing a great job, and for me, just continue. And I know with time, people will get to understand some of these things. And once people are getting results, your clients are having results, they will definitely come back to you, bring more people, and then together we can make the world a better place. Yeah. So, what are your final advices or your final advice to, listeners, to viewers, to anybody? How can we connect with you? On which platforms are you, that maybe if somebody who has listened to this audio or watched this video will want to connect to activate his human design and the gene keys?
Yeah, I love that. So the one thing that I'll leave people with is my one quote is, the limit does not exist, but fear and self-doubt will make you believe that it does. And I say it
Yeah.
again because so many of us forget it. We choose to lean into the fear. We choose to doubt ourselves. We choose to compare ourselves to other people when we were all designed uniquely. And so I would say, yeah, I would say to just challenge your beliefs. You'll find that many of the ones that you've been holding on to for a long time may not actually serve you. They may actually be holding you back. And so the best way for people to connect with me is to learn something about them. So on my website, diamonddripconsulting.com, there is a free chart calculator where you can actually look at your unique energetic about your gifts, learn about your strengths, learn how you sleep best, learn how your immune system was designed, and really start putting some practical things in place to start working with your design instead of against it. And on my website, you'll also find all of the places that I am on social media: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. So all of that is a one-stop shop, including the book.
Yes, yes, yes. How is the book doing? It's going on, yeah.
Yeah, so we are currently number 17 on the Barnes and Noble bestsellers, like top
Oh,
100. So
wow.
we're doing pretty good. I'm so excited.
Congratulations. I know what it goes through to get even the idea, write a book, and then market it to get to that, spot. So it's something that you have it, God has given to you. So once you are using it, I know that definitely you make an impact in the world where you find yourself. Yes. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on board, and I know that you return again. You come on the podcast again for us to have a more extensive review of how far the book will go, and then your next project as well. So thank you so much for coming on board.
Thank you for having me.
Great, 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 great. So viewers, listeners, this is or has been another episode of the King Obed podcast. Today we dealt with how you can know your human design, how you can activate the gene keys to transform, unlock your true potential, and also to limit the limits that you think you have, and do away with the imposter syndrome, the self-doubt that you think you have, and to be the better version of yourself. Yeah, so thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to the King Obed podcast, and let's be on a journey to be greater and to be better. Bye bye.